All right, we're going to go ahead and continue our Friday media availabilities here at Darlington Raceway in advance of Sunday's Goodyear 400. And we've now been joined by Ross Chastain, driver of the #1 Coca-Cola Chevrolet. And we will start with questions for Ross. If you have one, go ahead and raise your hand, and we'll get to as many questions as we can. And we'll start with Mike up front.
Mike Hembry, Auto Week. In your esteemed opinion, how much of the success of this team, which happened pretty quick, relatively quick, can be tied to the fact that Justin was a driver?
That's a good question, Mike. I don't know. I mean, he definitely, just on a day-to-day and just in his thoughts, he understands the importance of crew chiefs and engineers and race cars and making them go fast, but I don't know many drivers that can truly put aside their confidence or their ego and go hire people smarter than them. Usually drivers are the alpha. Everybody kind of tailors to us, right? I mean, just for the one team, everything kind of revolves around what my feedback is in the car and my schedule, and aside from getting on track. So it's important, but it's also important that Justin Marks is who he is. And I used to tell him in the Xfinity Series that he was way too nice to race because he wasn't mean enough and he wouldn't do what he needed to do on track. So it's important, but it's important that it's Justin Marks. Not every driver should be an owner. Like, they'll probably fail. So.
All right, we'll continue with questions. Questions for us? Okay, we'll go to Deb and then up to Dustin.
Deb Williams, RacingToday.com. I want to follow up a little bit on what Mike Emery asked you, Ross. With Justin Marks having been a driver, though, with the next-gen car this year, I heard where, when you got the team there, they came in and said, you got to be on board with this car. If you're not, you can leave. Because of his knowledge as a driver, did that help with the next-gen car?
I mean, it helped with him hiring the right people to run this next-gen car. It helped that he kept Tony Lunders in his role at the shop. He kept Darian Grubb. He kept the right people, at a high level of Trackhouse. Because we had a lot of the foundation, a lot of the building blocks were already there from CGR. So I think that the key for him was he's been there as a driver. Now he's looking at it from he had 150 maybe people. I don't know what the number was at when we got done with Phoenix. We were all looking at him like, what do we do? And because he was a driver, I definitely think that played into it. But his business savviness, his childhood growing up, moving out west pretty early on to California and watching his dad grow businesses and live in that environment. He wasn't always a racing kid. His dad was not a racer. Justin was the first one to go racing. So I think that had as much to do with making the right decisions leading up to the end of last season in his head, and then starting the Monday after Phoenix, putting into action what he wanted to do and how he wanted Trackhouse to be structured, and choosing the right people at a high level to then allow them and let them go out and make their decisions for, who's the engineering group going to be? Who's going to run the engineering group? Who's going to run the pit? Like, are we going to keep the pit crew department? Are we going to keep the Ross? Are we going to keep the drivers, right? Like, how are we going to do this? Allowing those bosses throughout the company, because you're only as strong as your weakest link, right? It's just like a chain. You're only as strong as the weakest one. So having a strong group and a strong chain is as important as, having good luck on the track, because the harder we work and the smarter people we have around us, the luckier we tend to get.
All right, we're going to go to Dustin, and then we'll go to Mike. Go ahead, Dustin.
Dustin Long, NBC Sports. In what you talked about with Justin and saying when he was a driver he was too nice, and you've talked repeatedly about your style, but I'm curious, as you have more success, as more people are watching you as opposed to a battle for 15th or 20th in years past, maybe they're seeing this style that you've had for the first time and raising questions about it, whether it's competitors or media or fans. And I'm curious, from your perspective, the reaction you're getting, and as you said, you've not changed, but just how people are viewing you now. Do you get a sense of how that's evolved and maybe a little bit more being under the microscope with the more success that you have?
Yeah. I learned a long time ago to take people's opinions for what they are. They're just opinions, and I used to really let it bother me, but I am trying to be better. I'm trying to my focus and the way I've been able to mentally move the needle for myself is getting to neutral, and that's a Trevor Moawad way of thinking. And I've just started his second book, his final book that he wrote before he passed, unfortunately, and that's been the best way that I can go to sleep and wake up every day knowing I'm trying to be better. Now on track, there's been some instances where I'm still making those mistakes that I made 5 years ago, but I'm human and I'm gonna make those mistakes. So yeah, people are gonna say what they're gonna say. They're gonna write what they're gonna write, right? Like I'm fine to be whatever they want to write about. I know that I'm trying to be better, and the people around me are trying to help me be better, and that's all I can really do.
Yep. Okay.
And just to follow up, when you talk about making mistakes, I think obviously a lot of people now are talking about the last lap of last weekend's or Monday's race. Does that, I don't want to put words in your mouth, was that a mistake, or is that not something, I just want to make sure clear, and when you talk about mistakes, is that something you look back when you talk about an on-track incident, or that was just a racing incident on the last lap at Dover?
I'd say more the mistake was 30 laps before that, not just letting him go and hoping he got by Ricky and then I'd get by Ricky too. That's more what I mean. I mean, the last lap is the last lap. Like, we're coming back around to the checkered. I'm going to race him as hard as I possibly can and we're not going to crash. Like, I trust him, and I hope that he trusts me. So, no, it was like, 50 laps before that, or the beginning of that last run when he first got to me. Probably should have just, looking back at it, let him go then and try to get by Ricky, and still finish third.
Right.
But I didn't.
Mike, go ahead.
Michael Massey with FrenchStretch.com. Ross, did you and Martin Truex Jr. ever decide on a place to go hunting or fishing?
The minnow pond here, man. NASCAR tweeted it already. They had a picture of us.
And what did you think when you saw the paint schemes for this weekend?
Yeah, so cool. I mean, it's Coca-Cola, like an iconic brand, something that we've all, I think, all had at least a sip of in our life. Like, it's something everybody's tried. It's just so cool. It's as a kid, I knew the Coke drivers, and I just, to have a throwback to something as iconic as the Earnhardt's first time race together. Like, Dale Jr.'s helped me so much. He's been there for me when I needed advice. He's been there to tell me I messed up. Like, I mean, we were neighbors, so it was just common. It was easier then to see him and to ask him stuff and swerve at him on the road. So yeah, it's to have the polar bears, it's just an iconic piece of history that I remember growing up and watching the sport, seeing, and I think for a lot of people to bring back a lot of good memories. And like, let's remember, like, they were arguing after that race, like father and son, like they weren't just, it wasn't all happy-go-lucky NASCAR racing, and they were clear across the ocean. So for me, it's knowing him that's extra special, but like just the iconicness of Coca-Cola and driving a Coca-Cola car, like getting to sit up here with a Coke, like there's a very select few number of drivers in the history of the sport that have gotten to represent that brand. And for me, it just blows me away that I'm able to do that this weekend. I'll throw watermelons.
All right, we're gonna go to Pete.
Technically, Daniel would have to throw the shoe at me, the way the story goes.
Pete Iacobelli, Associated Press. Ross, you had your struggles here at this track before. I think you finished third last Labor Day here. Does that give you some confidence that better runs are ahead at this place? And how do you think next gen will deal with an old school track like Darlington?
It is kept me up this week thinking about that because, I mean, this Gen 7 car, the Cup car right now is just so volatile to drive, and especially the first few laps of practice. And I don't expect Darlington to be easy. I mean, I'm just fully prepared and fully expecting to truly be driving at a pace that I can make laps, not going to set the track record. And cutting across the apron, entering in turn 3 and getting loose, or getting loose up the hill in 1 and down the hill at the new patch in turn 2, like, this place is intimidating for me, and I will roll out in practice. I mean, I rolled out in the truck just now in the 41 Worldwide Express truck, fully committed, just as fast as I could go. And that is not the case for the Cup car. I will be at a reduced pace, and I'll work up to it. Now, part of that is from my crash at California, and I've realized I can build throughout the weekend and still compete. I don't have to be fastest in practice. So I look forward to the day that I'm fastest in practice and driving at a reduced rate, because that's going to be really good for us.
All right, we're going to go to Steve, post in the back.
Ross, I kind of want to follow a little bit on Pete's question, but as far as the car goes, here at Darlington, the talk is this body is far more forgiving, so the Darlington stripe is there. Also, the talk is some of the suspension pieces are a little bit sensitive. Are you conscious of that? What's your expectation as to Darlington stripes, and how does that play out in your mind as we roll through this weekend?
Well, for me, over the course of the weekend, the truck is more sensitive body-wise. It's a metal body. The right rear tail hangs way out to the right. So any real contact is just a day ender in the truck series, in my opinion. So the Cup car, I feel like I have a larger window to touch the wall, but like you said, the suspension parts are just, I mean, they're rigid. So when they bend, and with this rear suspension, it doesn't move like with the truck arms and the track bars in the old car and the Xfinity and trucks. When you hit, it had room to move, and it would go back to its original spot. The independent rear suspension just doesn't work like that. So, I don't want a Darlington stripe in any car, let alone the new car. So,
all right, we'll come back up to Mike.
For most of NASCAR history, the idea that a driver could be helped by a self-help kind of book wouldn't even be on the landscape. Obviously, it's been positive for you. Have you shared that with other people, or what's been the response to that for you?
I have. I've talked about it openly, and it's even for me, it was scary initially to talk about, but I realized through it that, like, Trevor's, like, walk in the later years of his life was to help people, and he helped football programs across the country and pro athletes, but he also was these books were to help the common person, which is where I am. And members of my family ordered it, and actually the latest one, Getting to Neutral, one of Patrick, my tire guy, him and his girlfriend got it for me, so they gave it to me as a gift just recently, because I hadn't ordered it yet. So I'll talk about it with anybody, and I think if you just do a quick Google search and see kind of what he's done and what people say about him, and read some of the first couple pages of the book, it's just, even if you listen to it on audio, is how I did it the first time. I'm like, oh, let me listen to this thing. I'll just take the easy way. And then I was like, oh, I gotta actually read these words and try to get them to stick. And that was a year and a half ago. So, or last year, I guess, early last year. So it's not easy to talk about when you struggle with stuff mentally, because if anybody tells me they struggle with something mentally, I truly can't comprehend what they mean unless I struggle with the same thing. So as humans, and I don't understand my own brain, let alone yours, Mike. So it's just something that's helped me, and if it helps somebody else, great. If it doesn't, there's other stuff out there if you think you need the help. And it's just controlling some of the split second, quick, in the moment, heat of the action decisions. This is something that's helped me.
All right, we're going to go to Kelly.
Kelly Crandall, Racer.com. Ross, do you look at your numbers? Like, do you look at your finishes this year and just take in the fact that...
Yeah.
Okay, so since Vegas, if you take out Richmond and Bristol, you haven't been outside the top 5.
That's wild.
Right?
That's wild. I look at it. I can't believe it.
Okay, and so given that, when you go to these races week after week, obviously you've spoken before, your confidence is high, the team's, everything's working at Trackhouse. But for you, when you're going to these races, do you even worry about what racetrack you're going to in the sense of what you've done in the past, or does it not apply anymore given new team, new car? You just don't get in your head about what you have done before at that racetrack.
I may be a little. This might sound a little odd, but I don't think that there is a more nervous driver driving from Charlotte to Darlington today than me. Like, I am nervous to drive on the track tomorrow in the car because I know how out of control they are. I know how quick they are to wreck. I know what the penalty is if we do wreck, trying to get another car ready. So I really believe that, like, I will roll out there and practice and be at a very reduced rate. And my percentage of close to 100, maybe everybody's is different. But for my scale, I'll be scaled down X amount, like X percent. So, yeah, I do. I mean, I am fully prepping and grinding, just like I was coming here in Jay Robinson's premium motorsports car for my first Cup races. I mean, I just remember, like, coming here, he was like, we're gonna have sticker tires all night, and then I bumped the wall in 3 and 4, and then again on the front stretch, and he, after the race, like, we didn't have to pit, it was just crinkled the fenders in a little bit, and he was like, you tore up the right side of my car, and I'm like, it's a Southern 500, like, it was so hard to run 500 miles here and keep it straight, let alone just touch the wall a little bit. So all that comes back, all those memories of the 4 car here, and then getting the first shot in the 42, and as well as I feel like we've ran, the stats won't show it if you look at, different cars, but when we've had opportunities to compete in fully funded programs, I feel like we've done well, and I don't think there's a more nervous driver pulling into the track today. No, it's every week. Yeah, it's every week. It's every week after California, after Auto Club. Yeah, going into Daytona and Auto Club, I was probably one of the more confident drivers, and then I quickly got humbled. So,
All right. Ross, thank you for your time. We wish you the best of luck this weekend.
thank you. Just as they got quiet. So, thank y'all.